meeting, and did all board members get a copy of the minutes? And does anyone see anything that needs to be changed or corrected?
I don't think I have a copy of it.
I did not.
I wasn't a member then, so
Okay.
just
I see on page 5 at the very bottom, one thing that needs to be corrected somewhat. It says, Ms. Addison added the conditions that the garage cannot be expanded in any dimensions and the finishing of the attic area. Ms. Addison added that she was happy to share in the cost of recordation. She wanted no finishing of the attic area. So it should say cannot be expanded in any dimension and no, strike through the finishing, no finishing of the attic area. That's the only problem I see. And I don't hear anything else. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes with that one correction?
Second?
Thank you very much. And all those in favor of accepting the minutes of the last meeting with that one correction on page 5, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Ms. Bentley, I have handwritten that correction on this copy. I can sign this and give it to you with that handwritten correction, or do you want me to sign a perfect typed one later?
And all I need to do is change E to D on the next to last one.
Let me check. Any dimensions and no dimensions.
Okay, thank you. And I noticed that's actually, it should be.
Yeah, that's a typo. Do you want me to sign that copy or wait until you have a corrected typo?
I'll let you know when I'm corrected.
We need to swear in new board members, and because a number of us have been here for multiple 3-year terms, and we're supposed to take the oath every time we start a new term, and I don't think that's been happening regularly, I would like to see everybody take the oath. The new people will be sworn in for the first time, and the oldsters, just to make sure we're operating under oath, because it's very important now to the legislature. They've got a new statute that says, by God, board members will be sworn. So, Ms. Bentley, I'd like everybody to take the oath. I brought an extra Bible if we need one. How do you want it? Let's do this en masse as a group. Where do you want us? You want us to come forward there?
I think if Sarah can come up with a compliment of this, what do you think?
Sure.
We need a Bible though, right?
Yes, I got this one wrong, doesn't it?
I brought one, but so we're going to need 2 groups. Let's have one group with you and, I don't know, one group on the corner over here near Mr. Rothrock. How about that? Go ahead, Sue.
Do you want us to come down? How do you want to do it?
Just so you can touch the Bible, that's all that counts.
I, the undersigned, do solemnly swear that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of North Carolina, and the town of Blowing Rock, not inconsistent therewith, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office to which I have been entrusted without fear or favor, so help me God. Okay. We're good? And then I'm just going to give you each one of these, and if you'll sign it and get it back to me, I'll notarize it tomorrow.
Let's make sure everybody, actually, I haven't said anything yet. It says, I so swear, I so swear. Everybody, I so swear.
All right.
Okay, all right. Okay, we're good. All right.
This is an exciting.
That's yours, sir.
If you guys will just sign this and date it, and I'll notarize it tomorrow.
I got the wrong thing. I got the wrong thing.
All right, moving on, we need to elect the board chair and vice chair for the new term. We'll do nominations first for the chair. You can self-nominate if you would like. Any nominations for chair of this Board of Adjustment?
I'd like to nominate EB.
Well, thank you.
Second.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Is there a motion to close the nominations for chair?
So moved.
Mr. Rockamore, seconded. Seconded by Mr. Campbell. All those in favor of E.B. Springs as chair of the Board of Adjustment, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. All right, nominations for vice chair. And Ms. Perry, by the way, you have to be a regular member to be chair or vice chair, so I'll mention that to you now. Any nominations for vice chair? I'm going to nominate Mr. Lance Campbell. Lance has been with us for quite a few years now. This isn't done strictly on seniority, but, well, I nominate Lance Campbell.
I second the motion.
There's a second by Mr. Schiller. Any other nominations for vice chair? Do I hear a motion to close nominations for vice chair of the Board of Adjustment? Mr. Dr. Rockamora, I second. And all those in favor of Mr. Lance Campbell as vice chair of the Board of Adjustment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. All right. Moving on, before we get to the Davis variance application, let me say a couple of things, and I won't be long-winded because I want us to be out of here by 8:30, and we're operating under our fairly new rule that if the hearing is still going on at 8:30, we stop. We discuss whether we're absolutely sure we're going to get through by 9:30, because we don't want to be here later than 9:30. If we think we can finish by 9:30, we'll continue on. If we're not sure, we don't think so, we'll stop at 8:30 and we'll come up with a future date for a continuance that's agreeable with everyone. This is a variance hearing. The state legislature gave towns and cities the authority to have zoning laws and a zoning regime. But they also made a condition that every town that did that also had to have a variance application system. The legislature wanted there to be some flexibility in zoning and the ability for property owners to seek a bending of the zoning rules. And the legislature created 4 factors that the applicant for a zoning variance would have to meet. And I've handed out to the board members a copy of the actual statute. And it lists the 4 factors. I'm trying to find my own copy.
Need a flashlight.
There's one. Is that yours?
Yeah, yes, yes, yes. Once again, I'm swimming in paper. And that sheet is at the top and handwritten. I've put North Carolina General Statute 160D-705. The legislature created these 4 factors that the applicant has to meet. And then the Court of Appeals has filled in around the edges over the years and given more direction on what's doable and what's not doable. And one thing the Court of Appeals has said over and over again is a Board of Adjustment can bend the zoning rules, but you can't break them. They want flexibility. They want the ability to bend it under the right circumstances, but you can't break them. And the example of completely breaking the zoning rules that our friends at the Institute of Government that wrote this guide for Board of Adjustments, their example is somebody in a single-family residential neighborhood zoning district that wants to build a duplex. No, that just completely breaks the rule. That's not a bending. The first factor that the applicant is going to have to meet is unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the regulation. This is one of the few statutes that gives a little bit of guidance and commentary with the law. That first sentence is the law, and then it says it is not necessary to demonstrate that in the absence of the variance, no reasonable use can be made of the property. The second is the hardship results from conditions peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Hardships resulting from personal circumstances, as well as hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or the general public, may not be the basis for granting a variance. And let me come down to 3. The hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. And then it gives a little bit of clarification there. The act of purchasing property to acknowledge that circumstances exist that may justify the granting of a variance. That's not a self-created hardship. And then the last one, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulation such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. And that's the one where neighbors come in, because zoning was meant to allow people to enjoy the quiet enjoyment of their property more and protect homeowners and property owners from things that would damage the value of their property and the enjoyment of their property. So the Court of Appeals takes what the nearby neighbors how it's going to affect them extremely seriously. The zoning is supposed to protect people, and if a neighbor can come in and show ways that he's going to be harmed, the enjoyment of his property, the value of his property is going to be harmed by the variance, the Court of Appeals is going to take that very seriously. And of course, the paragraph under number 4 here is, no change in permitted uses may be authorized by variance. A use involves activity, running a restaurant, running a bar, running a service station. Renting a house is a use. There's activity there. We've had people come in here and want a variance to run a short-term rental house, and by law, we cannot grant somebody a change in use or a new use. So, moving on. Variance request number 2021-02. Members of the board, did everybody get the staff report from Mr. Rothrock?
I need a copy.
Do you need a copy?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I may ask the bar, do you have a copy?
I don't think I do.
There's one right here.
Is this it?
Staff report.
Okay, staff report, thank you.
Well, never to be sure. Kevin, give an extra copy. Just the staff report.
That's the one I'm going to read from. But you just want the first couple pages, or you want the whole thing?
I don't need the sketch of the pictures, just the written application. Sorry about that. Did you get the email though that had these
I did.
attached? Okay.
I did. Actually, I printed the staff report. I did not print the photographs, but I have perused everything.
Okay. All right. Well, if you need to see them, I'll put my set right there, and we'll share.
Okay.
Perfect.
Did you ride by there? I didn't get a chance to.
Let's see. You've got this cheat sheet and the paperwork over there.
Okay.
And this just sort of helps us keep organized and make sure we don't leave anything out. We just needed one more. Thank you, sir.
Good, thanks.
All right, so turning now to variance request number 2021-02. The applicant is John Davis III, and Mr. Davis introduced himself to me a little earlier. And Ms. Davis, your first name was Diane? Very good, and you've got your builder here.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's neighbors and neighbors.
Okay. The planning director, Mr. Rothrock, sent to the board members the staff report, which has your handwritten application and his typed report, and it's got some photographs. Did you receive that from Mr. Rothrock?
Yes.
You did, okay, all right. What we do is have the planning director introduce the case and what you're asking. He goes first as a witness, and he will make his staff report and the photographs attached to it a part of the record that will live in this building as a record of this case from now on. After he makes his presentation of his understanding of what you want to do and why we're all here, you'll have your opportunity to question him, ask him questions. He'll be under oath. The board will be able to ask him questions. Then Mr. Rothrock, if he has any more witnesses, and typically he doesn't in a variance, that will be the town side of it. The town is a party. There are two parties here at this point. It's Miss Davis and then the town. In a second, I'm going to ask if there's anybody else that feels like they have standing to come into this case as a party. Well, we'll do that now. Is there anyone that feels like they have standing to enter this case as a party and have all the rights and benefits of a party to cross-examine witnesses, call witnesses, et cetera? Anyone feel like they're a party? Okay. Mr. Rothrock, do we have anybody that has told you they're going to call in or Zoom in as a witness? Okay, all right. We do allow telephone witnesses. They'll take the oath over the telephone, or a Zoom witness, they'd take the oath and would have them testify live electronically, and then they would be subject to cross-examination. After Mr. Rothrock goes, then you would go, if you have any witnesses, would hear from your witnesses. Mr. Rothrock would be allowed to cross-examine you and your witnesses, and then the board would have questions of you, or may have questions of you, and would ask those questions. So before we start that, we've got a couple of other things we got to do. And the first thing is to swear everybody that's going to be a witness. And Ms. Bentley over here will do that. Everyone that's going to testify needs to be sworn.
Needs to be sworn.
Are you going
So anybody that wants to speak tonight needs to be sworn. Everybody, all y'all, Ryan, any neighbors that want to speak.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you shall give to this body in this matter being heard shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
This is a quasi-judicial hearing. It's like a court proceeding where the judge should not be discussing the case prior to coming into the public courtroom. So at this time, I need to ask all the board members if they have any conflict of interest, meaning they're related to anyone involved in this case. They have business dealings with anyone involved in this case. Such a close personal friend that they really shouldn't be participating in this case. Let's start with conflicts of interest. Does any board member feel like do you have a conflict of evidence? No. And I don't either, so it's unanimous. No conflicts of interest. Now, we're not supposed to have any ex parte communications about this case prior to coming into this courtroom. All our discussions about this case should be right here in the courtroom. It's not unusual, though, for somebody to contact one of us prior to a hearing and want to talk about it, and we're obligated to say, I can't talk about this, I can't discuss this at all until the public hearing. And we have no control over that. Has anybody had any prior communications or conversations with anybody, even if you've shut them off immediately? Let us know if anybody has any prior ex parte communications about this case. Anyone?
I've met the applicant as well as the builders just to visit the site and explain to them I was there, my purpose just to visit, that I could not discuss anything about the case.
Okay, all right. And there was no discussion?
There was no discussion.
Okay, all right. I had a citizen email me about this case, and I responded back, I can't discuss this case at all, period. I'm not going to say what the email said, whether the person was in favor or against the variance. I'm not going to spread the taint. I will say that the email communication to me has not deprived me of the ability to give every party here, everybody concerned, a fair and open-minded hearing. I have the email here. I'm going to mark it as a Board's Exhibit A. And I'm going to show it to Mr. Rothrock, and then I'm going to show it to the Davises. And if you would, read it silently to yourself. Again, don't talk about it yet. And then I'm going to ask both parties if you have any objection to me participating in this case since I got this unsolicited email.
I've saw it.
That for the park. I'll ask both parties, starting with Mr. Rothrock. Mr. Rothrock, do you have any objection to me participating in this hearing?
No.
Ms. Davis, do you have any objection to me participating in this hearing? Okay. The board members are allowed to drive by the property in question and take a look at it. You've heard Dr. Rockamore say he did just that. Did anybody else on the Board of Adjustment panel here
Yes.
go by the property? Mr. Campbell did. Anybody else? Okay.
I'm not affected.
I did not. And you've already answered the question, Mr. Campbell, that you had no ex parte communications. But does either party, starting with Mr. Rothrock, do you have any objection to Dr. Rockamore and Mr. Campbell having gone by the property and seen it?
No, I encourage them to.
Mr. Davis, do you have any objection to that?
No.
Okay. All right, Mr. Rothrock, will you present your staff report?
Yes, sir. This variance case 2021-02 for Mr. John Davis. And Mr. Davis is requesting a setback variance of 8.5 feet from the applicable 20-foot setback, street setback to build an addition to his house. Closest point of the new proposed addition would be 11.5 feet from the property line. The property is located at 255 Hilltop Way, and the property is zoned R15, single family. Mr. Davis originally requested to apply Section 16-12.4.6 to reduce the street setback to 20 feet from the street right-of-way and property line. This is administrative relief of the setback. That section states, the front yard requirements of this chapter for dwelling units shall not apply to any lot where the average setback of existing buildings located wholly or partially within 100 feet on either side of the proposed dwelling and on the same side of the street in the same block and use district as such lot is less than the minimum required front yard depth. In such case, the setback on such lots may be less than the required setback, but not less than the average of the existing setbacks on the aforementioned lots, or a distance of 20 feet from the street right-of-way lines, whichever is greater. The setback of the home, the adjacent home at 273 Hilltop Way, where's my little, I don't see my laser, anyway. Property just to the right of it is 273 Hilltop Way. It was measured, and 20-foot setback can be utilized because of that little bump out is very close to the street, somewhere around 11 or 12 feet. That's the only house that would be applicable in this case because of where it's located. Anyway, they could utilize that 20-foot setback. However, Mr. Davis needs additional relief from the 20-foot setback and is requesting 8.5 feet of variance to build his proposed addition. As mentioned before, the proposed addition would be 11.5 feet from the property line if the variance is approved. So in the packet that I provided you, the site plan, building plan layout, and additional documents and photos show the extent of Mr. Davis's variance request. The board must identify facts through the review of the materials and the testimony presented at the hearing. The facts must be written into the record of the hearing based on competent evidence presented. And then the board must vote separately on each of those determinations in our land use code, section 16-5.2, and approve by a 4/5 majority each of those determinations. If all four of those are in favor of the applicant, then the board shall make a final motion to approve the variance. And at the end of your packet was Mr. E.B. Springs provided you a checklist that we worked down through for you to have that opportunity to take in consideration all those factors and everything that you've heard. I'm just going to go through these slides. Most of it was provided by the applicant and their builder. The highlighted on this aerial shows the subject property, 255 Hilltop Way. You see the golf course behind it. This is a survey. The blue shows what they're proposing to build. You can see the existing house right there. The closest part would be 12 feet 3 inches from the property line, or what is also indicated as a right-of-way line, that bold black line there would be 12.3 feet, or 12 feet 3 inches.
Let me stop you a minute, and this question would pertain to any case. What's the measurement for a right-of-way? How do you figure the right-of-way from the street?
It varies. Some places, the plat will show the right-of-way or the property line. A lot of times those are are the same in most cases. If the plat recorded for that subdivision or that area of town, the old plat indicated a right-of-way, whether it be 30 or 40 feet, kind of varies through town. That survey is going to show what the right-of-way is.
The right-of-way is the area where the town reserves the right to go on there and do things. Is
For
that right?
maintenance, yes, sir.
Is it always, I'm trying to get an idea of what the measurement would be. Do you measure the right-of-way from the edge of the street?
Sometimes you can, but when you have a survey, that pinpoints where that right-of-way is, or that property line, and that's what this is in case. If we don't have a survey, we generally assume a 30-foot right-of-way because that's on the majority of plats, and we maintain 30 feet.
From what?
15 from center line.
From the center line of the
From
street?
center line of the street.
Okay.
Not always is the center line of the street the center line of the right-of-way, but that's the best we can do in a lot of cases. Just say, we'll go center of the street, 15 feet, that's where we're going to establish it.
Can you back up one slide?
The aerial,
Yeah. So the yellow line is the right-of-way line?
the yellow line is just a line I put on it to show where the property is.
Okay.
And these are tax maps. You can see where that one goes to the middle of the house. So that's not very accurate. This is just a tax mapping, and that's what happens when you have a photo underneath it.
Okay.
Some places it's right, some places it's right through the middle of the house.
Okay, so the right-of-way can curve, just like the street curves. It can
Yes.
curve at 30 feet right on along.
This is where this white line is along the edge of Hilltop Way, that's pretty close to where the right-of-way is.
Okay, all right.
I have enough confidence to say that's a good rule of where it is.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry I interrupted you. If you would continue.
So when this was done, this plat, I don't know, Mr. Davis, did you own it at the time when it was combined?
Yes.
Okay. They owned this other lot, and they combined them together to be able to utilize it because the lot really was a lot smaller than the other. So they combined it, and so that lot line, you can see right here, it says old lot line. It's probably along that property line, that's what it says, because they combined the two, and that line was removed. Okay. This is the front of the house. This one shows they're going to build to the left of the house, right behind where the power pole is there in the picture. A little more detailed, you can see some orange lines, and they'll get closer, and you can see what they're doing. This line represents the property line or the right-of-way line, this chalk line through here. This orange shows where they're preparing, where they want to build, the orange lines. That's the wall line, is that right,
The
Ryan?
wall line is the orange, and the stream line you see is the eve edge.
Okay, thank you. That's from the back side, from the golf course side, looking out. This is from the end, showing where they're going to add the addition to the existing bedroom. Another detailed shot. Again, the orange represents the wall line, the string represents the overhang and the eave. This shows 12 foot 3 inches to that yellow line. That's the closest point to what they're proposing to build. And this shows where the bump out is planned for their addition. you can see where the word street is. That's on the street side, so this is bumping out to the west of the property. I think that's all. Yeah, everything else is just documents. Last thing is, so they were trying to utilize the administrative waiver that's provided in the ordinance, and they could use that, but it wasn't enough for what they had planned with the addition on the house. So that's why we're here, to ask for relief from the Board of Adjustment, and I'll be glad to answer questions, and then I know the builder and the owner could do as well.
Ms. Davis, you want to go first, ask him any questions?
Sure. To ask him any questions?
Sure.
To ask him questions?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your report. You stated that in some cases you measure from the center of the road to determine the setback. In some cases, when you have a survey like I have, you go by the right-of-way where it is.
We use the center of the road to determine the right-of-way, not the setback, but to establish a line, and then from there you get a step. That's right.
Okay, so it does vary from time to time. And I was thinking I had any other questions other than you did mention earlier that the house next to us has a structure that's really close, like my house is to the road.
Right.
I don't know how close it is to the road. Did you measure that?
I did. I don't remember what it was, but it was less than 20. It was 12 or 13 from the pavement. So,
From the pavement, not from the right of way?
yeah, not from the right-of-way, from the pavement.
So these things can get a little complicated, but I'm going to bring this up in my presentation or my speech, I
Right.
guess. I don't have any other questions.
I've got a couple of questions, Mr. Rothrock. Anyone else want to start off with Mr. Rothrock?
That one last thing you mentioned, Mr. Rothrock, that the exception that was not quite enough of a variance, why was that not enough?
I don't want to speak for what they want to do, but as I understand it, they can clarify where if I mess up. What they had planned to do with the house to add on, the 20 feet from the property line would not allow them to do what they wanted to do.
Okay. That's clear.
Okay.
Kevin, I'm a little confused. You said that it was 12 feet 3 inches was the distance,
Right.
and then they're asking for variance of 8 feet. How much? I mean, that's more than 20 feet. Should be 7 feet something.
No. So they have asked for a variance of 8.5 feet. So it would be 11.5 from the property line. Now they're showing 12.5 to give a little extra room.
So you're using decimals. You're not using feet and inches. You're using tenths of a foot, right?
Using both. So their request on paper, they asked for 8.5 feet, 8 feet, 6 inches.
Okay, all right. They're using the relief that section 16-12.4.6 gives them. If they meet the requirements, and you have said they meet the requirements, they're entitled to that relief, are they not?
Yes.
It's not your call. You have to give it to them, don't you?
Yes.
Because they meet
Yeah,
the
if
requirements.
they meet the criteria, yes, they can get that.
Okay.
I don't say, well, I'm not going to give it today. No, they're entitled to that.
So they're not getting a double dip. They're getting what they're entitled to, and then they're asking for their 8.5.
Yes, sir.
Do you know when the original house was built, what year?
No, sir.
I think maybe 1956.
I think that's what you had mentioned to me.
Okay, I think it's 1956.
All right, let me ask you if someone that's been sworn. Mr. Rothrock, when do you think this house was built?
I hear it was 1956.
Circa 1956. Your report says it's zoned R15. And the ordinance that they're having to contend with, and I'm looking at our checklist, number 6, the thing that stands in their way is section 16-12.4.6, which requires 20 feet, and they need some relief from that. So that's the problem they're having here, is section 16-12.4.6? Is that a
Yes.
fair statement? Okay. Because it requires a setback of 20 feet.
Right.
Now, who took the pictures that are in your packet? Did you take them?
No, I
Okay.
think Mr. Fox did.
Parks.
Okay. And
No, Ryan Fox. Ryan Parks.
the diagram of the building, did they provide that as well?
Yeah, they provided everything. What I provided to you was the aerial photo.
Okay. So it would be fair to say that the applicant did provide drawings or sketches or plans or pictures illustrating what he wants to do?
Yes.
Now, you're required to give certain legal notices, Mr. Rothrock. Have you provided the necessary legal notices of this case and this hearing to the public?
Yes, sir.
And have you given proper notice to the adjacent property owners?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how did you do that? By mail?
By mail.
Okay.
Was there any other property owners other than the adjacent house that received?
Within 150 feet of the property. So maybe 9 properties. Tammy does all that, so. 12 properties, 13, including the applicant. Golf course, those across the street, and within 150 feet.
All right, are you you're sure? How many, did you say 13?
13,
13 letters went out?
yes.
Okay, we can ask Ms. Bentley if we need to. You sure?
You don't need to.
Okay.
I'm looking at it.
All right.
13.
All right, proper notice has been given to the public and to the adjacent property owners. All right, any other board member have any more questions for Mr. Rothrock? Just a couple, Mr. Rothrock. You're the planning director for the town of Blowing Rock. Does your office or the town take a position one way or another on whether this variance should be granted?
No, sir.
Okay. You've typed up your report, so you're familiar with what they're proposing. Does it appear to you that what they're proposing would or would not impair emergency vehicles such as fire trucks and ambulances to get to their property or anyone else's?
No, sir.
Do you see any way what they're proposing to do would create a fire hazard?
No.
Do you see any way that what they're proposing to do would block or impede visibility on any street or highway?
No, sir.
Do you see any way that what they're proposing to do would be contrary to the public health or safety?
No, sir.
I am struck by how close this house is to the street. And of course, if it was built today, it wouldn't be, but Well, that's not a question, that's a statement. I'll withdraw it. All right, thank you, Mr. Rothrock. We appreciate it. Do you have any other witnesses?
No, I just want to make sure that when others come up, that we come to the mic so we can be on the online. So it'll pick up. That's it.
Okay. Mr. Davis? Bring up your first witness.
Yes, sir. And I'll scroll as you need.
Okay.
If you need me to show up.
If you could show the site plan that shows the house.
This one.
And just for a minute, I'd like to say thank you for taking your time, for listening to our issues here, and hopefully we can work out something that works for all of us. I'd like to say that you were talking about how close our house is to the road. It is 8 feet, 7 inches from the eave of our house to the road right away. So it's built very close to the road. And we bought it, it's been there since 1950 something. So when we bought it, we purchased a lot beside it. And I'll get into that. But our new addition that we want to do is addition to our master bedroom, because the original rooms are really small, and I'll get into that. It's further back away from the road, 3.7 inches further back away from the road than my house is. There are several houses along this road that are really close to the road. Mine might be the closest. I don't know, but when they talk about a 20-foot average they set based on the houses in neighborhoods, I'm at the low end of the average, so it hurts me with what the average has been set as far as being able to meet a setback. Board members and zoning and planning staff. My wife, Diane, and I, who's here tonight, we've owned and lived at Lot 22, which is where the house is, 255 Hilltop Way for several years. We don't live there full time. We live there 6 or 7 months out of the year now, and hopefully a lot more later.
When did you buy it?
We bought, I guess we bought, what year did we buy? 7?
5 years ago,
5 years ago,
17, I believe. 17.
like in,
This was our fifth year, fifth summer.
does that answer your question?
2016, 2017?
So, yes.
Okay.
When we purchased the home, we also purchased the adjacent lot, number 23. I promised Diane that we would not sell lot 23 or build another home on it. The lot is now covered with our garden, we inherited, which is a spectacular, pretty garden, which we love. We maintain it year-round, and we plan to keep it forever. In June of 2018, we combined the two lots for the purpose we're here tonight, to allow us to make our bedroom and baths on that end of our house a little larger, for they were built a long time ago and are small. Without this approval, we will not be able to use any of Lot 23 for our house, and without an easement or a variance for Lot 23, I don't believe anybody could have built on that lot because of the narrowness of the lots that were platted before the 50s. The whole plat was set up back then, I think, more than likely. I tried to find out where there were any setbacks at all when these lots were platted. I don't think there were. So people just built a house where they could build a house that worked near the road at the time. Our house is currently located 8 feet 7 inches from the right-of-way of Hilltop Way and 17 feet 10 inches to the edge of the road. If you measure the center of the road, like sometimes it happens, that we'd be a lot further away than that to the center. So we're fairly close to the road. Without our variance, there won't be any reasonable use of our property for improvement. There are property lines of neighbors, which I've talked about, that get very close to the road. I think that it's important that we try to meet the requirements that you listed that is in your ordinance. I think one of them is there would not be any reasonable use of the property if we can't build anything on it, which obviously would be a hardship. It also would be, with the depth and the setbacks, it makes it pretty much impossible to build something new without a variance. During the last couple of years, we've been working on plans to enlarge the size of our master bedroom, along with updating the older decor we've had since we purchased our home. It's been a difficult project due to the existing house already being only 8 feet 7 inches from the property line. After several renditions, we finalized a plan with our builder, Ryan Parks, by offsetting the addition away from the front property lines as far as possible and still allowing the plan to work. What I'm saying is, if we tried to push our addition further away from the road, it won't line up with our master bedroom anymore because our master bedroom is on the front of the house. So that wouldn't work. So we've spent a lot of time working on the plan. The addition will sit 12 feet 3 inches from the right-of-way at its closest point, farther away from the right-of-way than the house now sits. Initially, we had preliminary work done in the field to make sure that our setbacks were going to work for us. And we met with the town staff on site. My builder, Ryan, met with the town staff on site. And at that time, we were told that our plan would be okay. We began the interior demolition on our house based on that. We were later told that we would need a variance, and I think for the reasons that we were told that looked further into the code and felt like a variance would be required. We also cleared the front part of the part that's near our house where our garden starts to make room for this addition, but we did not start any footings or anything else. But our inside of our house is ready to go as far as demolishment. We are here before you to request the variance. The addition is only 13 feet long and will sit 12 feet 3 inches from the right-of-way, further away, like I've said. We have extensive evergreen trees that are high and will help buffer our addition. We have done everything possible to make this request as aesthetically pleasing as we can. We are located on a very narrow lot, which creates our issue. We feel that our request is reasonable considering the existing location of the house, narrowness of the lot, and need for more space for our home. This variance not only affects the bedroom, but most of all the first floor because we're trying to make it all average out to be decent sizes as opposed to what it is now. We have notified and met with our neighbors, and some of them are here tonight. Thank you. To support our request. We are not aware of any opposition to our plan in our neighborhood. Several of them have sent other letters and emails here to the office or to, not to any individuals that I know of on the board, but I think other than the one you showed us. And they were all in favor of the ones we were told. And we hope the board will approve our request to allow us to finalize the construction of our bedroom addition. I'll answer any questions you have, or I think that's all I've got. Basically, I did bring another copy of my survey that's the full survey if we needed it. And I do have pictures which I think are pretty much coinciding with the ones you have if we need to look at them again. But I think the ones you have suffice for what I've got. I just have a few more. So are there any questions?
Mr. Rothrock, do you have any questions of Mr. Davis? Any board member have any questions of Mr. Davis?
We're going to look at the plans. Is that the builder or is this the owner that we just look at a floor plan?
Let's assume he may be the one and only witness, so.
Can you put up the floor plan?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. In looking at it, it looks like there's a bathroom at the lowest part. Is that your bathroom, master bath?
Show me what rooms are what.
Yeah, show me what, yes.
Okay. This is the existing master bathroom.
Okay.
That's the.
But it's going to be a little bit larger this way per this plan than it exists now. It's more narrow.
Okay.
That's the new master bathroom.
That's the new master bathroom. Over here is the other bedroom, how it, it exists now, there's no changes on it. The larger area back here is going to allow us to have a closet in our master bedroom, which we don't have one in the master bedroom now. And then it's going to make this room, it's 8 feet, 10 inches deep through here. It's going to make it expand out larger. It's just going to be like 19 feet this way. So we're going to have enough room for a lot of bedrooms. So you can see the offset over there, we're moving that over. And how it sits on the lot is pretty much close to the middle of the lot almost. So does that answer your question?
And what's the room, what's the top room? I assume the middle room is the bedroom itself,
This
current as it exists?
This area right, I wish I had the laser.
I know, I don't know where that thing is. Maybe I can help you. So, see that 25 right there, that line? That's the end of the house today.
That's into the house, right? What's the room below that, Kevin, or Mr.
So
Davis?
that's the current bedroom.
Okay, and what's the opening between the wall, the back wall of the current bedroom and the addition, the new
That's
addition?
going to be open, right?
What's the width of that? How wide is that?
2015.
15 floor.
Okay.
The width of that bedroom, on the outside edge of the addition, closest to the garden.
Right.
Yeah, the opening from the current bedroom into the addition
That's correct.
is 15, what?
15 foot 4 inches.
15 foot 4 inches. Okay, thank you.
Any other
That's-
questions?
And the distance between the back wall of the addition and the back wall of the existing house is 5 feet,
5 foot 8 inches.
5 foot 8 inches. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Do you have other witnesses that you want to call?
I don't think you heard me.
I don't know if you heard.
If you have any idea, Steve.
Do you have any more?
You won't.
Do you have any more witnesses? We'll get to the neighbors in just a minute.
Do you want Ryan to speak?
Would you like me to speak?
Well, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
All right, just step up. This won't take but a minute. Tell us your name and your occupation.
Ryan Parks, I'm a general contractor. Building.
Okay, all right. You're building this?
Yes.
Okay. And Mr. Rothrock, any questions for him?
No, sir.
Any board member have any questions for him? Thank you very much.
You said the opening again, currently as it is shown, is 15 feet, how much?
15 feet 4 inches.
4 inches, okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions?
He's also a local builder.
Thank you very much.
That may or may not help.
I don't think it hurt.
All right. Mr. Davis, do you have any more witnesses that are your witnesses?
Neighbors know, you know, anyhow.
Okay, all right, so now we'll turn to neighbors. Does any member of the public want to speak to this? Ms. Gibbons? Tell us your name.
Joellen Gibbons, my husband Bill, so I'm speaking for both of us. We both have colds, that's why we have masks on.
Okay.
We're the neighbors on the other side of the third tee box, so as you round the corner, we're our neighbors, and we are very much in favor of their addition. We know it'll make their home even more beautiful and enhance the neighborhood. So no objections whatsoever.
Okay. Look at the aerial up behind you and just give us a general idea of where your house is.
If you go around the bend and the house that's halfway on the picture, on the golf course side, that's where we are.
Okay. All right.
So, yeah, we're the next house from them.
Mr. Rothrock, any questions?
Any
sir?
questions?
Any board member have any questions? Thank you, Ms. Gibbons. Any other member of the public that wants to testify? Okay. All right. ladies and gentlemen of the board, let's go ahead and start working on our findings of fact. Anybody want to lead off on our checklist?
I have one question.
Yes.
Mr. Rodrock, we have heard that there's 13 letters sent out to neighbors. What was the response or lack of from those 13?
I got one letter yesterday, I think it was, Monday, from Roy Barnes, 256 Hilltop Way. I could share that with you.
Well, his letter is hearsay, though. It's hearsay.
Then why send out letters?
To give him the opportunity to be here and speak to it.
Okay.
Mr. Springs, that was an email from from Roy, and he verified with the office that that would be valid as an email from him.
No, it's hearsay.
It's not just a letter, I just wanted to say that.
I understand.
I didn't put it in the packet. Well, we just got 2 days ago, but he asked, and that's what I received.
Okay, but what we want to be sure of, though, is that the adjacent neighbors, the close neighbors, were informed of this hearing, and they knew when it was going to take place. And your notice gave them a means to look into what the applicant wanted to do, or you stated what the applicant wanted to do. Which way was it?
Both. I mean, I told them what was
Your letter.
what was being asked for and how they could contact us, and if they wanted to participate in person or remotely, they had that opportunity.
Okay. That's what's important. If somebody felt like they were going to be harmed, they needed to know where to go and when to be there to speak against it. Any other questions? All right. Who wants to lead off with the findings of fact? Any board volunteers?
Vice Chair.
Let the chair do it.
Vice Chairman needs to take over.
All right, findings of fact. The applicant is John Davis III. The owner of the property in question is John Davis III. The address of the property in question is 255 Hilltop Way in Blowing Rock, and it was built circa 1956. The applicant purchased the property in 2016 or 2017. The property is zone R15. The applicant wants to do the following, which would violate zoning regulations and which would require a variance. The applicant wants to build an addition onto the existing house. Applicant wants to apply the setback distance relief of ordinance section 16-12.4.6, which after measurement by the Blowing Rock Planning Director would be a street setback of 20 feet. Then the applicant wants a variance of 8.5 feet on that 20 feet from the street setback. And I think it'd be more accurate, 20 feet from the right-of-way. Right-of-way / property line. This would result in the applicant's addition being 11.5 feet from the property line. The Blowing Rock Zoning Code ordinance section here, which is at issue and which stands in the applicant's way, is section 16-12.4.6. And put into words, the ordinance requires a setback on the front yard / street side of 20 feet from the street right-of-way. There are not other parties withstanding to come into this case in hearing. The applicant did provide drawings or sketches or plans or pictures illustrating what the applicant wants to do. The town of Blowing Rock has provided and given all necessary legal notices of this case and this hearing. There was not proper notice of there was Proper notice of this case and hearing given to all property owners with property abutting the parcel of land which is at issue here, and proper notice was given to any other persons entitled to receive notice. 13 property owners were notified. The applicant did receive a copy of the planning director's staff report prior to the hearing. There were other witnesses in this hearing besides the applicant and the planning director. And the name of that witness and address of the witness was J.O. or J.O.E.?
Joellyn.
Y.N.
Wyman.
Gibbons.
Gibbons, Gibbons.
And give us your street address, Ms. Gibbons.
193 Hilltop Way.
This witness expressed no problems or objections to the applicant's plan. What the applicant is proposing would not impair emergency vehicles such as fire trucks and ambulances. What the applicant is proposing would not create a fire hazard. What the applicant is proposing would not block or impede visibility on any street or highway. What the applicant is proposing would not be contrary to public health and/or safety. Unique features of this property include the existing house is extremely close to the street side property line. The addition must go in the location sought so that it lines up with the existing bedroom. That was correct, wasn't it, Mr. Davis? You had to line it up with the existing bedroom.
Yes, existing floor plan.
Does any other board member have any other facts you'd like to put into the findings of fact?
Can we comment on that, not the floor plan and the existing bedroom, et cetera? Is this the time or later on?
You want to make a fact of it? Or?
Yeah, if you look at the plan, floor plan, the opening is 15 feet 8 inches. 15 feet 4 inches, sorry. If you look at the, if you narrowed it, if you took the 5 foot 8 inches from the back of the house and moved that back 5 foot 8 inches, that would still give you an opening of 9 foot 8 inches. So theoretically, to minimize impact in terms of setback by 5 foot 8 inches, you could be doing it with again, with alignment of the room and still provide almost a 10 foot opening.
May I speak briefly?
Yes.
With the window arrangement in the guest bedroom, which is the back section, there, the window that is shown near that small box, which is the HVAC unit, is an egress window. In order to maintain egress within that bedroom, to maintain it as a bedroom, we have to keep the ability to leave that space, in case of emergency. That's part of the reason when we took it only to that point, in terms of shifting it, back.
Could another window be put in that area for egress?
Potentially, yeah. I suppose it could. There's a transom on the back where it says 16 feet, or on that same line it says 16 foot 6 is a transom window where the bedroom or where the bed sits. other than completely changing, you know, a whole rear layout of a house for that window. I don't, but Mrs. Davis is correct that it would be a challenge to do so.
And I'm not sure if the setback,
Are you sworn, Ms. Day?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm not sure that the setback would work from the other side of the lot line if we extend that part, that
The setback on the back is what would the setback on the back be, Kevin?
12.
12 feet?
because we are right on the golf course.
Would that be an issue, Kevin?
There's a tree, a ginormous tree back there also in that corner.
I hear what you're saying about the moving it, but the problem is the back right side of her extension is the master closet. And you're saying, I guess, slide it further down with that.
I'm just saying keep it on the outside, move it down, maybe move it in, have a window and have a bedroom. And the HVAC would be in the walkway of the back of the house. There's a stone walkway
Go back
that
to
leads
the-
to the porch.
Do you want to summarize what you said a little bit and do an additional fact?
Okay. Again, I've heard no specific contraindication structurally that would prevent movement of that window for the egress for that back bedroom. Again, moving it back 5 foot 8 inches would minimize somewhat the impact of the variance. There would still be some. The third option, obviously, the second option might be to, instead of making it parallel to the house, make it perpendicular to the house.
All right, Dr. Rockham, just distill it down to about three.
Well, I think
Distill it down.
I think there are options for minimizing setback intrusions. One is to move it 5 foot 8 inches so that the back wall coincides with the current rear wall of the house. That's probably the easiest thing.
If we do that, we're going to have a Z-shaped bedroom, which doesn't really function.
Defeats the purpose of, see, currently the bed, the end of a normal sized bed is almost to that green line. And so it's a very small.
Within a couple feet, 2 feet.
Yeah, it's, when you enter the bedroom, the back wall has windows that look out to the greenery out there, and then, the front wall is a window, so there's not a lot of options for a bed. It's a very small bedroom currently.
But again, you're getting the space. You're talking about maybe personal preference?
Well, it's, for one thing, we deeded the lots together so that we would have this option. Now, by doing so, we have no use for that lot. That lot is so small, we're not able to build anything on it, even with all the setbacks, hardly even a cart barn. So if that was something that someone would put on it. So that we thought that this, adding on the bedroom would make the most sense, and we're, shifting the whole plan down just a couple of feet, but.
And the biggest point is that when we didn't go into this like haphazard. We went to the city first and had it measured, and it was okay. And we started demolition. We started grading the lot, out our garden. And then we found out we're going to have a variance. So we're back here to get the variance now based on this plan. So that's the hardship we have. And not to mention the depth of the lot and the setbacks.
Would it be fair to say that the addition could be set back a short distance? What would you say
5 foot 8 inches.
about it? The addition could be set back about 8 inches further from the right-of-way. But there are aesthetic reasons why the applicant really desires that it go as proposed. Is that a fair statement to everybody?
Yes, and the setback is measured to the overhang of the eave of the house. It's not measured to the wall. So the house itself sits even further back, 5 feet some inches instead of 3 feet some inches, because even in front of our houses, your setback is all measured to, my understanding, to the eave of the house now.
I mean, the bedroom, we want the bedroom to go straight out. We don't want the bedroom to go, it's like, that's a closet on the right, and
You've articulated the aesthetic reasons why you really want it to go where it is pretty well.
but also to be able to use the lot, the lot that we deeded to our main lot, to make use of it in some form or fashion. Otherwise, it's not much value.
I've listed the fact 18 as the addition could be set back approximately 8 inches more.
5 feet 8 inches.
5 feet 8 inches?
5 feet 8 inches.
5 feet 8 inches more from the property line, but for aesthetic and practical reasons, the applicant really wants the addition to be cited as proposed. Fair enough?
Yeah.
All right. Any other facts from any other board member?
Yes, sir. I think it's important to document that in 1956, when this house was built, there was no such requirement for a variance or for a setback of 20. And as you testified, Mr. Davis, that your current house is 8
feet 7 inches.
8 feet 7. So this variance request would end up with a setback, if you will, of 11.5. My comment would be that this is even further from the road than your current house is,
Yes,
although it's not 20.
right.
I think that's important.
That's the problem.
Mr. Campbell, do you want to make fact number 19? Would you summarize it in 2 or 3 sentences?
As testified by Mr. Davis, the current house is 8
feet 7 inches.
8 feet 7 inches from the road. The requested variance will end up with a setback of 11.5.
Let me stop you. It's 8 feet 7 inches from the property line. Is that
Right
right?
away property.
Okay. The variance request tonight ends up with an 11.5 feet setback from the property line. A more modest setback, if you will, than currently exists with the house.
With one comment, Kevin, if the house were built today, what would be the setback requirement?
20 feet, based on the house next door.
Right.
Mr. Campbell, see if this fits what you have in mind. The current existing house was built 8 feet 7 inches from the right-of-way property line, and the variance request here by Mr. Davis is for an 11.5 feet distance from the right-of-way property line?
Correct.
Okay. Any other facts from any other board member? I move that we close the findings of fact. Do I have a
I
second?
have a question.
Oh, sure.
So if the addition were to be set back further, what would be the cost of moving the HVAC system and having another egress from that other bedroom?
That's a good question, and moving the unit, as a guesstimate, and I just have to leave it that way because I'm not an HVAC contractor by license, would probably be $700. The window replacement and removal of the transom, however, is probably more in the $3,000 range. Also, where that HVAC condenser sits is opposite of, if we were to just turn it onto the corner, toward that back corner is where the electrical comes into the house. So again, there would be some competition of space in that back corner. We would then also lose all the, I don't know if they're boxwoods or the shrubbery, let's just say, landscaping around the back of the house that are well established as well in order to make that change. So there'd be some landscaping costs ensued as well at that time if that was.
I mean, to me, just an opinion, if the house just went flush, the addition was flush to the original house, it would look more like it was originally built like that. And now you're setting it back, and that looks a little odd, but I see that you're doing it in order to partially comply with the setback rules.
We are trying to gain that space off of the road, make a subtle adjustment while providing them the space that they're looking for and making the space useful for their needs.
Do you want to distill that into a fact?
No, it works fine if you want to bring it out towards the boat and get a bigger variance. But we think.
I'm not suggesting,
we're
just-
using the same exact old stone footing, and we're going to be using the same exact rough sawn with
Yeah,
the
the
siding.
feather edge siding.
So it'll match exactly. The roof lines are going to match up, and so we spent a lot of time on that detail. And actually, I think it will look okay, set back a little bit. You really can't see it from the road.
Mr. Schultz, you want to add to the fact?
I would just say that there would be some additional cost and inconvenience if that section were to be moved back because of the moving of the HVAC, the electrical coming into the house, and making a different point of egress from the existing bedroom.
All right, this would be fair.
And it would have that zigzag effect instead of being a more normally sized rectangular room. I mean, it just occurs to me.
All right, how about this? Fact 20. If the proposed addition were set back further from the right-of-way property line than proposed,
Then there would be additional costs incurred, and it seems to me the space would not be as aesthetically pleasing and useful because of the zigzag Mrs. Davis mentioned.
let's, to try to keep it as a black and white fact, there would be additional costs incurred and possible aesthetic problems, is that?
Or functional space.
Okay, so how do you want to word it? additional costs incurred as well as,
As a lack of normally usable bedroom space where you wouldn't have a big wall. Because then you'd have that, what's the space now between the current bedroom and the setback? How many feet is that? Between the original house wall and then how far is that going back?
We're pushing from wall to wall, 3'6".
Okay.
all right, Mr. Schiller, so finish me off. Would there be additional costs incurred as well as,
Let's use it where, aesthetically pleasing. I don't know what words to use, but I'm just thinking if I had that, it wouldn't be as nice.
a reduction in aesthetics?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other proposed additions to the facts from any board member? All right, I'm going to move again that we close the findings of fact. Is there a second?
A second?
Any further discussion on the findings of fact? All those in favor of closing the findings of fact and adopting the 20 findings of fact that we just narrated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we'll move to the conclusions of law. Based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown above, the Board of Adjustment either finds or does not find substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the regulation. I'll take any discussion. I think they've met that factor. Does anybody want to discuss?
Strict application means 20 feet, right?
Yes.
I agree.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and move that we find that based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown above, the Board of Adjustment finds substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the regulation. I move we find they did. Is there a second?
I second that.
Any further discussion? All those are finding that the applicant has met this factor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. The board's vote on this factor was unanimous. Moving on. Second conclusion of law. Based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown above, the Board of Adjustment either finds or does not find substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property. Any further discussion on that? I think they've made their case there. I move that we find that the applicant, that from the evidence presented and the facts shown, the applicant, by the applicant, the Board of Adjustment finds substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the hardship results from conditions peculiar to the property. I move we find it. Is there a second?
I second.
There's a second by Mr. Schiller. Any further discussion? All those finding that the applicant has met this factor, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Number 3. Based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown above, the Board of Adjustment either finds or does not find substantial material competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or property owner. Any further discussion on this factor? I think they've met the case here. The applicant bought the property in 2016 or 2017. It was built in the 50s. They didn't cite that house. They had to, they have to deal with the reality that existed when they bought the house 5 years ago. I move that we find that from the evidence presented and the facts shown, the Board of Adjustment does find substantial material competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or property owner. That's my motion. Is there a second?
A second.
It's a second by Mr. Shore. Any further discussion? All those that find that the applicant has met his burden here and there is substantial material competent evidence existing to conclude that in this case the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant. All those that find that he's met his burden, say aye. Aye. It's unanimous. Number 4, based upon the evidence presented and the facts shown above, the Board of Adjustment either finds or does not find substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulation, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved.
This is where we need a point of discussion. I think that, we need to, because this is where we talked about conditions, if we give variances. And I think it's time, I think that as we want to give people the right and to address hardships, but if there are ways to mitigate their request in favor of maintaining the ordinances as best we can, that we need to consider those. Moving the back wall, yes, it does. I have no idea what the project budget is, but if we talked about, we heard of somewhere around $3,700, maybe $4,000. I expect that's probably a minimal amount in this case, but it also mitigates the variance by another 5 foot 8 inches. Without significantly, it doesn't impair their space. The room stays the same. The room size stays the space. It does the opening is offset as it is now. It's going to be a little more offset than what it is. But again, the aesthetics of the room do not change because the room itself doesn't change.
Well, except that you're moving it further back.
But again, it's already. If you look at the entrance to that room. The entrance to the room is already offset, okay, because of the bedroom behind it, okay? So you're not talking about an even space, entering an even space. It's an uneven space. There's much more room on the left-hand side of the drawing than there is on the right-hand side of the drawing. And it gives them the space that they wanted. The opening is just less, and the inclusion into the setback is less. So again, our responsibility is to make sure that we give people variances that are appropriate, but also to make sure that if there are ways to mitigate the variance somewhat, that those thoughts be considered as well.
I see what you're saying. We need to respect the zoning law and the reasoning behind it. But Dr. Rockamore, you could take that to the extreme. You could say, well, you want a 12 by 20 addition. Well, to mitigate your offending the law, why don't you just make it an 8 by 6? You know, you could take that.
But we're not doing that here. We're not changing any dimensions of the addition. We're not changing any dimensions of the addition.
But they pretty well articulated a lot of aesthetical reasons to have it.
But is that a reason to not follow, not to mitigate the variance?
I think so. We don't want to worship the law and ignore what zoning was all about in the first place. It was to make people's enjoyment of their property more and not less, particularly when it's not going to hurt anybody else's property. And this obviously isn't. It's not a sharp curve. It's not going to impede anybody's visibility or make their exiting their driveway more dangerous. It's, property owners that would be offended by it were given the opportunity to come in here and speak their piece and speak against it, and they're not here.
Our responsibility is to maintain the ordinances as best we can, and with giving variances as appropriate. And we're giving them the variance. We're giving them the variance. We've just shifted things a little bit. Again, the space. Again, if this were symmetrical, I would understand the aesthetics if this were a symmetrical opening, or
Right.
it's an asymmetrical opening,
Right.
as it is. So I'm not sure that I understand why aesthetics should be a basis here if again, the room exists on its own, okay? So the aesthetics, we're not changing any dimensions of the room. We're just moving the room so that there's less intrusion into the setback.
Yeah, but they've got some good reasons, financial and aesthetic, why it's better for them where it is. I think that last factor, doing substantial justice, is they want us to bend the rule. I think they could have been it a little bit more, and it really wouldn't be offensive, and it wouldn't have been offensive to the neighbors. I'm just guessing. Again, zoning is all about the enjoyment of your property and everybody's property, not losing value, but being complemented. And this doesn't hurt anyone, and it enhances their property and their enjoyment. I see what you're saying. We can't stick our finger in the eye of the zoning laws just
For personal preference.
but I don't think we are. I think we're bending them, and that's what the whole variance scheme, what the General Assembly had in mind.
Well, since there's a street there, you're not, impacting a neighbor, which would be a different kind of thing. Closer to the street, and I think this way it's going to look like an addition. If you had it flush with the original house, it would look more normal, like it was originally there. I mean, that's...
And we would be okay with that.
No, I'm not suggesting that happen. I'm just
And
saying...
the reason we put it back further, because we were trying to push it as far back as we thought it'd still be aesthetically workable. We don't feel like it can push back any further that way, and we would not want to do that.
You wouldn't want to be that close to the golf.
Well, it's not just that, all the windows, the other room changes, it just, the view out of our bedroom, that's all one room there. It's not like two, back in the bedroom, the front, it's one room, so it just would be like this, and that's not going to work.
Any other further discussion on this?
I just think this is a good example of where a reasonable variance can be given. They're not asking for anything too extreme. I don't even know if it would be extreme just to push it straight out, but they're not asking for that. Because it's on a street, and other houses are close to the street. So it's kind of in keeping with the neighborhood itself.
All right, somebody needs to make a motion. Does somebody want to make a motion, or do you want me to do it?
I'd be glad to make a motion, but I think back to my comment a few moments ago, that the trespass into the 20-foot setback, which didn't exist in 1956, of your house now being 8 foot 7 inches from the property line, the trespass in what is asked for as this variance is less than that. You're not saying I want to push out to be 8 foot 7 from the property line. And I think that's reasonable. So I would like to make a motion that, based upon the evidence presented, the facts shown, the board would find substantial material and competent evidence to exist to conclude that in this case, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit and the purpose and the intent of the regulation, such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved.
All right, that's Mr. Campbell's motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Mr. Schiller seconds it. Any further discussion? All right, all those on the board that find that the applicant has presented facts and evidence such that we would find substantial material and competent evidence exists to conclude that in this case the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulation such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. All those that find he's met his burden say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It's unanimous. He has met all 4 factors. Our conclusion of law number 5, the Board of Adjustment does grant the applicant a variance. As he has proposed in his application. He may build 8.5 feet into the 20-foot setback allowed by Blowing Rock Code section 16-12.4.6. Personally, I don't see the need for any additional conditions. Does any board member think we should impose additional conditions? Okay. Those are our 5 conclusions of law. The decision is going to be, we do grant the variance. The decision is effective upon filing with the clerk. And the Board of Adjustment did adopt the above conclusions of law by a unanimous vote. And I will type this up and get it to Ms. Bentley in the next couple of days. And is there any further business for this Board of Adjustment tonight? I'll take a motion that we conclude this hearing and our meeting.
I second.
Mr. Campbell moves that we conclude. I second that motion. Any further discussion? All right, this meeting of the Blowing Rock Board of Adjustment is concluded.